Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to your women's show on a Monday evening. I am Brian, the host tonight, and I am joined ably by Wilf and Alan. Wilf, how are we doing this evening?
A lot better than I was yesterday, thanks, Brian. Yeah, helped partly by the women's result, obviously, but yeah, it's nice to be talking about a Rangers team that didn't have it easy at Peasy, but they got there in the end. So yeah, it's going to be a bit more positive than what we were talking about last night on the boardroom for the members. So
absolutely. Alan, long time no speak. How you doing?
Yes, it's been a while, Brian. So good to see you again. So much like Wilf, it's a wee bit better today than maybe we felt yesterday morning after Saturday. But it is good to be talking about a positive Rangers result.
Absolutely. And just a bit of housekeeping before we start. John Middleton's joined as a YouTube member. Welcome along, John. Nice to have you along, and hopefully you enjoy everything that comes along with being a member. Old Man Talks Rubbish. I'm sure we went over that one this afternoon, Alan. He's joined as a member as well. Thank you very much.
Brian, can I answer your question from earlier on? I'm convinced he's named himself after me.
Well, I would not.
You didn't want to say that this afternoon, but that's what Alan was getting at, I think.
I was not wanting to speculate anything, so no, I'll not.
Had nobody in mind. I'll just clear that up. Had nobody in mind. It was an open question.
And the Adventures of Milo has joined as a YouTube member also, so welcome along to one and all. And of course, we are obviously going to speak about the game between Partick Thistle and Rangers, but first of all, we will obviously speak about the transfer window. Wilf, were you quite? I take it, like all, you were very surprised that the lack of activity, considering how many players we lost.
Absolutely. I mean, the window closed last Tuesday, and we were expecting at least somebody else in the building. I mean, we were told we'd probably get. I mean, Leanne said the weekend before she was looking at one or two, and we thought one or two's got to be more than one or two because we lost in the time midfield and we brought in Jess Pegram. But apart from that, nobody. I mean, nobody permanently. We're still really short of bodies. We still can't name, due to injuries at the moment, we still can't name a full bench. I mean, we could have done with even a couple of loan signings in the building just to beef things up a bit. There is a whisper that we are going to be bringing somebody in, but that would need to be a free transfer or somebody else from abroad. Like, I mean, I know when we brought in Shimji Kim, we knew about it about 3 weeks before it was announced because of all the, the red tape and all that sort of stuff. So unless it's somebody else from abroad where there's lots of red tape holding it up, for some reason they haven't said, by the way, she's on her way. But I'm very, very surprised we didn't strengthen the squad anymore because we lost so many players over the course of the summer. And at the moment we're looking okay. But a couple of injuries and suspension, a couple more injuries and suspensions, and we're going to have real problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clear things up, Milo is actually a CEO, so but much appreciated, Milo. That's a great support. Alan, much like Wilf, I think everybody was expecting certain, decent amounts of ins over the transfer window because obviously, as Wilf's just alluded to, the entire midfield was decimated and a good chunk of the forward line, but sadly, no deadline day signings.
No, I'm very disappointed about that. And yes, I had heard, as Wilf alluded to, there might be one more coming in, but almost got to be somebody who's unattached. I saw Hibs confirmed a signing a couple of days after the deadline. So girl came over from Ireland. So there might be something in the works. I've got to hope that because we've got a first team squad right now of 21 players. Yeah. 3 of them are goalkeepers. One of them is Sarah Ewens, who seems to be doing well in a recovery from an ACL injury, but is probably still months away. Laura Rafferty's still out for a while. Leah Eddy's probably at least a month away still. So that takes us down to 15 outfield players in our first team squad. And I believe we've got a team who can go and beat anybody in this league, but to do it consistently over the course of a season is asking an awful lot of a small group of players.
Yeah, well, the squad size is certainly worrying in the sense that we haven't had to seek our injuries. We've had serious injuries over the last 2 or 3 years. Certainly, we've had various players with ACLs. We've had players out for several months. So it is a squad game now. You can't get by with 12, 13 players. You need as many bodies as you can sustainably have. So the numbers aspect is worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday's game, which we'll get onto, that proved that you need to use your squad properly, because it was substitutions that absolutely changed the game in our favour when Brogan Hay came on. But we're going to end up running players into the ground. I mean, last season we ran Liv McLaughlin into the ground. Sorry, not last season. Season before, when she was here on loan, we ran Liv into the ground and she ended up being injured. And we argued at the time, and you could probably still argue, we would probably won the league had Liv been available for the last few games of the season. She wasn't, simply because we'd run her into the ground. She played almost every minute for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. We're going to end up in that situation. I mean, defensively, we're really weak because Laura Rafferty, we don't know how long she'll be out for. She's been out a while. She'll still be out for a considerable period of time, I think. Okay, Jess Pegram's just come in. Luckily, when she got clubbed last week in the Old Firm game, it was only a dead leg, and she was okay to play yesterday. Kathy Hill's just coming back from an injury, so we're having to be cute with playing Kathy. She wasn't supposed to play 90 minutes last week, but she did. It wasn't on the, I think an hour was the most they were planning out of her last week, but because Jess went off injured, she had to play 90 minutes. She got another 90 yesterday. Kathy's body's had that many injuries recently that she probably won't. She can't last 90 minutes every week. No, it's just not going to happen. And okay, you've got Ailey Austin doing the business. That's fine. Nicola Docherty is, her body's getting old. As when your body gets old, if you get a little knock, it's a bit longer to get over it. I see Alan smirking there. Her dad will kill me for that, but it's true. I mean,
my dad will kill you for.
Well, that's true. But so the older players take longer, feel little knocks, and probably last a bit longer, and we'll have to be able to manage the squad. I mean, look at yesterday. We only used 3 subs yesterday. Basically because we didn't have the bodies on the bench. As Alan says, we've got about 15 outfield players. You know what I mean? And because it's football a squad game now, you need all your outfield players to be rotated all the time. And we're really light. I mean, well, we're talking transfers. There was a comment come in from, I think it was JD. I've got it here. Oh no, sorry, it was Paul. It was an ever reliable Paul. Alan, he's still raging about the transfer window. Was Kirsty Howard still under contract? I think she was, wasn't she?
Yes, Kirsty Howitt's contract ran until the end of this season, much like Rio's did. I'm frustrated we've not got replacements in. We've got to be prepared that the girls are going to go and play at a higher level than the Scottish game, and I don't think we can grudge any of the players leaving to take that opportunity. What is not good enough? The club are not prepared for this. The club don't have the replacements already in the building. The replacement should have been in the building in January. Knowing that you're probably going to lose players in the summer. I don't think the club would have been expecting to lose both Rio Hardy and Kirsty Howard in the same summer that Jane Ross is retired. That's a hammer blow to our striking options. But out of the squad last season, we've lost 90 goals with the players that have left. And we brought in 4 players. We brought in Alice Griffiths, Fallon Conley-Jackson, Shinji Kim, and now Jess Pegram. That is not enough to replace the 90 goals that we've lost out in last season's squad.
Well, no, particularly Brian, with none of them are strikers.
No, exactly. I mean, from what we've seen of Shinji, I mean, she looks an accomplished player. Looks very good on the ball, scored obviously yesterday. So, but as you're both saying, the striking options are the real worry now. You're asking a 18, 19-year-old Laura Berry now to step up and virtually be in that first team arena now for the rest of the season because there's nobody else. And Sarah Ewens has not had to seek her injuries, and that leaves Katie Wilkinson. So, 3 striking options compared to what we had last year is very, very light. And again, as you touched on it just earlier, Wolf, with Liv, there's a fear now that burnout's going to be we're going to flog these players. We're going to lose a lot of them to injuries because we'll have to play them because there's nobody else. And as you say, the forward and future planning hasn't been good enough. And, I do feel for Leanne Crichton in a way. I feel she's been left in the lurch slightly because she hasn't been able to obviously get players in that she would like. So there's a lot going on. I think we'll do okay in the short term. It's the long term, the sort of Christmas sort of time and, the January time. I think that's when the sort of proof in the pudding will happen is, the busy period of the season. Luckily we don't have Europe. I mean, if we had Europe, we'd be in even worse shape. But thankfully, we're not in Europe.
Well, it might have brought in more money and encouraged the club to spend a wee bit more. So it's a toss up. I think it would have helped us attract players, maybe even help us keep one or two of the players that had left. But I do feel for Leanne Crichton. I think she's come into a very, very tough spot. You've lost the spine of a team that have been winning trophies. Albeit we've been missing out on the big one that we all want, but that's a really experienced core, and it's not just the goals that I mentioned, but it's experience, it's leadership, the steal, the drive, people who score goals in big games. Real Hardy and Kirsty Howitt weren't just scoring the fifth and sixth goal and thumping wins. They were scoring only goals of games. They were scoring match winners, and you could trust them to step up big. It might be that this is an opportunity to be making a Laura Berry as a Rangers player. She's been in and around the first team since she was 15, really. She's been on loan a couple of times at Motherwell, scored a lot of goals. She scored some goals for us, but she's maybe been snatching a bit much, almost trying too hard. Now, we'll go on. She's off the mark for a season. She's probably got to get a lot more football, hopefully a lot more football through the middle. So, that we talk about how bare the squad is, but it's an opportunity for players like Laura, like Ellie, who's played every game so far.
Yeah. I mean, there is this one, Wolf, are they hoping to get to the winter transfer window? I mean, goodness me. I hope, again, being sort of devil's advocate here, I'm not saying it will do, but there's every chance that the season could be gone by the time the window comes. You know what I mean? It's not a guarantee that by the time we get to the January window that we can suddenly take players in and start doing well again. The season, the league might be gone by then. A team might take control and just go on a run, and we can't keep up because of the numbers that we've got.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're hoping to get through the window unscathed, because if as we touched on, we get one or two injuries, then we've got some big problems. You know what I mean? And the problem with the winter window is it's never the best. I mean, whether it's men's or women's, it's not. Everybody's overinflated, because if you're going out desperate looking for somebody in the winter window, it's because they know you need them. So if you're paying for them, the price goes up. It's availability, because teams aren't going to want to lose their better players. So again, it costs you money. So I'm not really quite sure. The thing that I'm really, really concerned about, I mean, Brian, you touched on Shinji Kim, being a talent. Her feet are so quick, it's only a matter of time before somebody catches her late and she's out for a few weeks. You know what I mean? And that makes the midfield even later. Laura Berry's really, really quick. Right? There's a chance, because most people that are quick over short, over short distances, they've normally got problems with their hamstrings and stuff like that. So you can't rely on her every week. I'm not wishing any injury on any players, but you've got these things to take into consideration. And it's being threadbare. It goes back to why did we loan players out, young players out so early? We seem to loan the young players out to the teams that they have really, really early, when we could probably do with them even just to bolster the bench. It would be great experience. They probably get better experience sitting on the bench coming on for 10 or 15 minutes than they would playing an hour for Spartans or whatever, or wherever. Because I'm not really up on where everybody's on loan, but there's loads and loads of good young players. I know Alan knows more about them than I do.
Yeah.
Lots of good young players out on loan that we could probably have kept them out the building until towards the end of the window, then put them out.
So I mean, Alan, you'll have a few that are in your head that could have done a job this season, and certainly, as Wolf says, stuck around the building and helped the girls.
Definitely, I think the load you're going to put on the wide players and how much you're going to rely on them chipping in. I would 100% have kept Sophie Townsley in the building. She's going to play every week for Hamilton, but Hamilton are probably going to be getting beat and struggle for a lot of possession most weeks. So I'd much rather have kept Sophie Townsley in the building. She didn't look out of place when she played in the first team, the friendly against Middlesbrough. And yeah, Middlesbrough might not have been up to much, but she was brave enough to take players on, take the ball, take long shots, get the ball into the box, and certainly learnt a season rotating in and out the team with Lizzie Arnott and what she could have learned from Lizzie and Brogan and even Mia, would have been excellent. So Sophie Black in midfield, she's a way back to Motherwell. I think when we're so threadbare, Sophie Black's more than capable of playing in our first team. And Lily Boyce as well. She's not played the last couple of games for Motherwell because she's captain in the Scotland under-19s when they're over. I think they've played a couple of games in Finland. So certainly those girls who are in SWPL 1, I think could have more than contributed to the squad, the numbers where we are. Natalie Bandura's one at Spartans, certainly Spartans will be very good for her and Casey McKenna. Natalie's started all 4 games Spartans have played this year and scored 3 goals. So really important that the girls out and loan are getting game time, but I definitely believe we're guilty of loaning too many players out because we've done it the last 2 Januaries and left ourselves short, loaning Laura Berry out, loaning Ellie out last year, and we get shorter bodies as the season gets to the end and down to the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Brian, before we go on to the game, Alan touches on a point there as well about the international stuff. I believe May Crufton is now away on international duty. So yeah, she's unavailable for at least next week because she's away with the under-16s or under-17s or whatever. You know what I mean?
Leanne Crichton mentioned that post-match. So, yeah. Again, we're probably down to Leanne Crichton being stripped next week. So, it's a bit facetious saying that, but, you almost think it might come to that because, as Wilf keeps saying, 1 or 2 injuries and we're in real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Paul's point here, Wolf, do you guys think the new owners are only concentrating the men's team rather than both? I think that's quite difficult to come to an assessment like that, isn't it, just now?
Well, they obviously realise that that the priority is always going to be the men's team because that's the big earner, that's where the big money comes from, that's where the 50,000 crowds are. Unfortunately, the women don't get anything like that at the moment. So they have to try and they have to try and sort that out. But I obviously wrongly assumed that they would have a serious interest in the women's game because women's football is massive in America, absolutely massive in the States. It's probably bigger than the men's game in stateside. So I thought, obviously, probably wrongly that they probably concentrate on it. But yeah, they probably are at the moment because they have to get them. If they get the men's side right, then naturally the women's side will follow. But there's nothing they can do now. The transfer window's closed. They can't do anything now till January. So we just have to get on with what we've got. You know what I mean? There is an expression I was going to use here, but it wouldn't be suitable for a women's pod, so I won't use it. But yeah, we just have to get on with what we've got and just hope that the squad we've got is enough to see us through. And if we do get a couple of injuries, I just hope that our Icelandic international goalkeeper can play outfield because we might need her.
Well, she's certainly tall enough. That's one thing. Certainly tall enough. She's a big girl, isn't she, Alan?
She is, but now with the transfer window closed on both men's and women's sides, hopefully it's a time that over the next few months before we get to January, the new owners really take a deep dive into the club and the setup and everything that makes us in a much stronger position going into the next transfer window. They've took over at a time when the window's open on both sides, and that's naturally the full sort of focus. Listen, we've made that comment to Demi a few times, Paul. Demi is fully prepared. So
But Paul, we've also both seen her play and we want to win games, so we'll just leave that there.
No, I think in time we'll see how much the new owners care about the women's side. I'd be very, very disappointed if they completely neglect it. But
yeah,
the next few months is a time for them to properly get involved in the club now that the windows are closed.
Yeah,
well, that's a good point. That's a good point from Keith Ryan as well. We've pulled in fees for the likes of Joe, Liverio, and Kirsty. So hopefully in January, Leanne's given that money to spend, even if it's just on contracts for loan players or whatever, or loan fees, or just to get bodies in the building. We just have to hope that we can get, to January relatively unscathed.
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, we'll speak about the game against Partick Thistle. Their team lineup on yesterday was Fife in goals, Austin, Pegram, Hill and Docherty in the defence, McCleary, Shinji, Macaulay, Arnott in the midfield with Berry and Wilkinson up front. I usually ask, is that the sort of team that you would think, Alan? But let's be honest, the options are quite limited, so there wasn't too. The only surprise you could probably hazard was Brogan Hay didn't start.
Yeah, but I kind of feel, and it turned out to be really important, but when we're starting Brogan, Mia and Lizzie, it vastly reduces your options to change a game in the second half. I think with Katie dropping deep behind Mia last week, it was not a surprise that we're going to see her start there and give Laura Berra a run it up front. It was really good to see Ailey in the team and starting it right back. That's her natural position. That's where we'll see the best of Ailey, and I think she did well there for the first hour before she moved in when Jess went off. But even with such a small squad, we've played 5 games and there's only 4 players started all 5 games. So we're still seeing a few changes every week when it's not quite settled down yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we've just been speaking, numbers are limited. I think, unfortunately for Leanne, the options of resting players and alternating the sort of the front lines is going to be a hazardous situation for her, isn't it? Because I dare say there's going to be situations where she wants to rest players, but just depending on games coming up and who they're against, that sometimes she might have to play the same 11 twice.
Yeah, she might be. She seems to be using the squad quite well. I mean, again, my gripe last season with Jo was that a lot of times she didn't use the 5 subs, which is 5 subs to use. Again, as I touched on earlier, we only used 3 subs yesterday. We could probably have, although we didn't tie the game up too late, we could possibly have given, maybe Fallon Connolly Jackson the last 5 minutes, whatever, just to give somebody, maybe to give Kathy Hill a rest for 5 minutes or whatever. But I don't know what difference 5 minutes makes, to be honest. But I would imagine that Leanne would probably be thinking, well, I can maybe give Kathy a rest after an hour if the game's kind of been put to bed, and it wasn't. So it's all down to when how the game goes. So I sort of understand why we only did the 3 subs yesterday, and it was the use of the squad that won us the game. Because yes, Brogan Hay not starting was a surprise, but bringing Brogan on after an hour when Thistle were visibly tiring worked an absolute charm and got us right back into the game. And Brogan was outstanding the half an hour she was on.
Yes. Although, Alan, the game didn't quite go to plan, did it? I mean, I seen the group chat early on, and it wasn't looking particularly good. And of course, on the quarter hour, Partick, a great ball through the middle of the defence, and you have to put your hands up and say it was some finish. 1-0 Partick.
Yeah, listen, great finish, but she's been allowed to sort of waltz right through the midfield with the ball before it gets moved on to Rachel Donaldson, who has a habit of scoring long rangers against us. But right from the start of the game, our players were really guilty trying to grab onto players, trying to pull players back and hold on to players, and that's something that needs to be sort of knocked out of the game. It's not going to help. It's not effective enough. And yeah, of course, there's times you're going to do that and take the booking and stop an attack in midfield before it gets dangerous. But it seemed to be the go-to, and that's a wee bit concerning. Defensively, we're not solid enough to be getting in front of players and making proper challenges. So was far too easy for Partick to move through the team at times. And listen, obviously Jennings came out trying to close the ball coming through, but yeah, Mensch has been lobbed for just outside the box, and Partick were well worthy of that. You always know going to face Partick, you're going to come up against a really well organised team, really good shape, and they're going to work their socks off, and that's exactly what we found.
Yeah, and Wolf, there was 2 occasions I remember in the first half where they had a counter attack. They had a really good passage of play. One of the girls was not quite 1-on-1 with the goalie herself, but somebody was closing her down. A weak shot, thankfully, so it didn't result in a goal. And then another chance where the same player that I believe was scored was put through again, and she hit the bar this time. So if we were 3-0 down, we really couldn't have many complaints, could we?
No, but I put in the group chat, you could drive a coach and horses through our centre backs. I mean, the full backs were pushed right up as Leanne tends to do. But I mean, Kathy and Jess Peggin, they were miles apart. You know what I mean? It was so easy for them to go through them. But all Thistle would do was playing the ball into the space, and the lassie that scored the goal, can't remember her name. It was a terrific finish. She had so much space. I mean, there was the one she scored, and the one she hit the bar when they were 1-on-1 with the keeper. She just took the wrong option. She should probably have scored that. We could quite easily have been 3 down at half time because there was huge gaps right down the middle of our defence. And as Alan says, the midfield's not tight enough to be able to do that. You know what I mean? There's not enough. I mean, I understand why the midfield were grabbing at players, because once they got past them, there was just a huge gap in the middle of the park. Fortunately, we seemed to sort it at half time. They seemed to tighten up because there was just the centre backs were far too far away from each other. And I get it, because obviously they were covering an entire half of the back because the fullbacks were pushed up so far. It just didn't work. Thistle had obviously spotted it, whether they spotted it beforehand or in the play, and all they would do is throw the ball into space. And let's be honest, as Alan says, Thistle like scoring good goals from distance against us. The goal she got was brilliant. The one that hit the bar would have probably been a better goal, but fortunately for us, it came back off the bar.
Yeah. I mean, the only sort of shining light we had, Alan, that first half was a Katie Wilkinson goal shot that hit the post. I mean, chances for us were few and far between, weren't they?
Yeah, and I think she also, from a corner, hit the bar with a header, but really, we were second best in that first half. Yeah. And if we're going to play full-backs high up the park, you need a natural sitter in midfield. Jodie and Kim put a lot of work in, but they're quite far away from the defence. So you're leaving just the 2 back, which is always going to be risky. I think we need to look at the setup in midfield and maybe have somebody that'll naturally sit a wee bit. But with Katie in the sort of 10 just behind the striker, she's not naturally going to drop in. One like maybe a Camille would if she was playing that position and just add a number in the middle of the park. So it's about Leanne finding out the best balance of the squad that she's got available, and it'll be a lot of trial and error, but there's not going to be a great margin for error this season because we saw how tight it's been for the last 3 years.
I mean, I'll come to you some quickly before we go into the second half. Do you have an idea of Camille, what's happening with her?
Well, she was on the bench. She was an unused sub. Again, I go back to what I just said. She probably would have come on had the game been put away earlier, because you have to rotate the squad. I mean, the midfield options that we had, as Alan says, you probably could have put Cammy in, to sort of sit. But who'd you leave out? The way the game went, you know what I mean. It was probably the right thing to do to leave her on the bench, but it was the way the game went. Just didn't get a chance to bring her on. I fully believe had we got the third goal earlier than we did, I think Cammy and Fallon would both probably come on. But I don't think there's anything wrong with Camille. She was just unlucky to be left out yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Totally agree. Alan, we got the equaliser. Brogan played in Shinji. Shinji crossed to Laura Berry. Laura Berry's persistence got the ball back. She had a shot which was saved. Her persistence again won the ball back. Now, I don't know if she heard or seen Katie Wilkinson coming in, but I think it was a good layoff to Katie Wilkinson, and Katie Wilkinson was never missing from there, was she?
No, I think Laura's had a couple of bites at trying to get the shot off, but she's determined. She knows where Katie Wilkinson is. I didn't hear her shout at a game, but I'm sure Laura had the awareness, and she's kept the ball alive. She's just knocked it back. She was getting forced a wee bit wide, so she wasn't in a good position to shoot. She's laid it back into Katie, and Katie's just sort of stabbed it home. It's a range you'd expect Katie Wilkinson to be scoring from, and we were starting to get on an ascendancy since Brogan had came on. That was 8 minutes I've got after Brogan came on. We'd get back in the game, so definitely we were in the ascendancy by this point.
Yep, and Wolf Brogan again heavily involved in the second goal, cutting inside, a little 1-2 with Katie Wilkinson, and then she spots Laura Berry just inside her, and Laura Berry does what Laura Berry does and scores a terrific goal.
Oh, I thought this was a lovely goal, because it was a 1-2, but not as you would expect, a sort of 1-2 with a wall pass. Brogan, who was, as I say, she was absolutely brilliant when she came on. I mean, there was a lot of calls for her getting player of the match. I don't like giving player of the match nominations to anybody that's only been on for half an hour, but she did completely change the game, and she really was good when she came on. She got spotted Wilco on the edge of the box. Wilco played it back to her, took a touch and played it back, so it wasn't a stick 1-2 because Wilco controlled it, gave it back to her. And as you say, Brogan spotted Laura, and she kind of lifted it so the defender couldn't cut it out, and straight to Laura Berry, and Laura Berry's not missing from there. And I'm sure our very own Carol would have been over the moon that her favourite, got her first goal of the season, and it was well deserved, because Laura was trying really, really hard. It just wasn't working for her, and then she's not missed. But brilliant ball for Brogan. But to be fair, it was a tremendous ball back to Brogan from Wilco in the first place.
Yeah, Alan, that was a nice little bit of invention, wasn't it? Wilco just hitting that little sort of dink chip over the defence, and Brogan having the awareness to not take the shot and see Laura just inside her.
Yeah, it was a really well worked goal, and I'm looking forward to getting around to actually catching highlights to watch it back a couple of times. So delighted to see Laura off the mark. She works so hard. She's probably trying too hard and snatching her chances, making the wrong choices. When Flora, I'm not sure where the feedback's coming from there, but Laura's trying so hard, and I really feel that she needed to just get a goal from somewhere, and I'm fully believing that Laura Berry's got talent to go on a run of scoring goals.
Absolutely, definitely. And Wolf, the third one, again, a hat-trick of assists from Brogan. Good run down the right. Spots Maycroft coming in, and Maycroft makes no mistake, and her first goal for the club.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great ball to Brogan in the first place from Kim, from Shinji Kim. She set Brogan off on her way. As we said, Brogan was imperious in the time she was on, and she spots May, and May's first goal in professional football. What's that? Just over a week after her 16th birthday. I mean, that's the stuff of dreams, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's fabulous. You know what I mean? That's absolutely, and she took it well, and well deserved. And as Alan says, that's Laura off and running. Hopefully, that's May off and running as well. Because May's not shy of having a pop at the goal. Yeah. So hopefully she's off and run, because we've lost a lot of goals out of the team. I think Alan said it was 90 goals we've lost out of the team over the course of the summer. So if we can get players like Maycroft, and then obviously we'll touch on Shinji Kim getting the fourth goal. If we can get them scoring goals, get Camille Lefebvre, popping in with a few goals. Wilco still firing. Mia McCauley likes a goal. She hasn't had one, didn't get one yesterday, but she likes a goal. We need to get goals from all over the park. We can't just be relying on Laura going on a run and Wilco chipping in. You know what I mean? We need goals from the likes of May and Jodie McCleary. And I mean, I'm still amazed that Jodie didn't score at all last season. That was a start that absolutely amazed me. You know what I mean? We need Kathy coming in with a couple of goals at the back post. We can do with Jess, but we really need the entire squad to be scoring goals because of the amount of goals we've lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And Alan, the last goal, well, I don't think the Partick Thistle coach will be too pleased watching this one back. I mean, that is not how not to concede a goal, passing the ball around your 6-yard box. make a mess of it, and Shinji was right there ready to capitalise. And you know what I thought was really nice about this goal? The way Shinji sort of celebrated with the players afterwards. She looks as though she's a very infectious character, and the girls seem to have taken to her very well. So it was nice to see her scoring as well.
Yeah, it's always nice when you see players come in and are instantly sort of taken in as part of the team. You know, I think we've got an extremely good group and in the dressing room there. You know, looking at it from outside, you really get that feeling that they're very comfortable together, and you know they're absolutely brilliant when new players come in. Kim seems to have come in and settled really well. You know, and it was just about putting pressure on when Partick are at the back and struggling to clear. You know, we just made the game safe for the third goal, and we had a wee bit of gloss to the scoreline that we probably didn't deserve. But it's good to see Kim off the mark. So 3 players off the mark for a season, and in the second half clinching the points for us, you know, could be massive.
For me, Brian, it was good to see, you know, Katie Wilkinson going in and the keeper. I think the keeper just looked up and went, "Oh shit!" That's why she should have tried to pass it out. And you know, Kim just took the ball, and you know, as Paul says, she could just have it first time. You know what I mean? Yeah. But she was composed enough because she's definitely got the skill. She's definitely got the talent. You know what I mean? And composed finish and tremendous. I mean, just great for her. Great, and it was good. She does really seem to be taken to the team. She seems to have taken to us as well. You know what I mean? I mean, we noticed before she signed that every single member of the team followed her on Instagram. That's how we knew she was coming. You know what I mean? And so there'd obviously be some interaction between her and the players. So they certainly got to know each other a little bit somehow before. I don't know what the language barrier is like. I don't know. I would imagine their English is quite good because, you know, young South Koreans generally have got decent English because it's like everybody else, they all get taught English, whereas we only speak English, you know what I mean, which is on us. But I spoke to her briefly after the Old Firm game, but I didn't kind of have a conversation, so I don't know what her English is like, but I would imagine it is quite good. But it's got to be better than all the other girls Korean, you know, let's be honest.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Very much so. I was wondering where you're going with that one. I'm glad you went the way you did.
I'm not sure.
So anyway, that left the league table sitting currently at Rangers on 13 points after 5 games. Celtic second, 12 points on 5 games. Glasgow City third on 12 points with 4 games played. Heart of Midlothian fourth place, 10 points with 5 games played. Hibs 9 points. 4 games played in 5th. So early indications are evident. You know, there's a definite split again, Alan. There's a top 5, and then there's the rest. And it's you know, is it going to be more of the same as what we had last year? But the sort of top end of the table will be a bit more tighter in the sense that I think more teams will take points off each other.
Yeah, I think it will be tighter, but obviously less games, so there's 2 less teams in the league. So we'll see how much that changes anything. But obviously yesterday it was basically the top 5 all played the bottom 5. Yeah. You know, next week, and we'll go on to talking about our game with Aberdeen, but Glasgow City host Hearts and Celtic host Hibs. So there's points going to be dropped somewhere next week, which is a chance for us to go and take on Aberdeen, which we can't write off. You know, they done really well and pegged Celtic back twice yesterday, so we can't be expecting an easy game, but it's a game we absolutely have to be going and winning, and we have to make it comfortable. But we're going to have to work extremely hard to do that.
Yeah, poor Demi messaged me yesterday. She was watching the Aberdeen Celtic game, and she texted me. She says, "This Celtic team's not very good." I said, "What's the score?" I phoned her. I said, "What's the score?" She says, "When I texted you, it was 2-2. It's now 4-2 to Celtic. The wheels have come off at Aberdeen." But still, you know what I mean? I don't know whether it says that Aberdeen's going to be harder than we expect, as Alan just said, or whether Celtic just aren't really at it. You know what I mean? I would imagine probably Aberdeen were resilient until they sort of did. I'd imagine much the same as Thistle. Yeah. You know, putting it in there and then sort of tiring towards the end. But I mean, Aberdeen's had a lot of fairly close games recently. I mean, they played Glasgow City a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed they only lost 1-0.
I was about to say it was only 1-0, yeah.
Yeah, and it was on the Saturday, and I'd seen them having a full-scale training session on the Friday night, which I was amazed at because I was at the under-17s game at Cormac Park for the men. And I was amazed they were having a full-scale training session sort of 12 or 14 hours before they were playing Glasgow City, but they only beat 1-0. You know what I mean? And then their City yesterday won again, but they only won 1-0 with 10 players. You know, so they struggled a little bit as well. So there's maybe going to be one or two shock results. I just hope we're not on the end of any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And just to finish off, folks, the fixtures for next weekend: Montrose versus Hamilton, Glasgow City versus Hearts, Rangers versus Aberdeen, as Alan mentioned, Motherwell versus Partick Thistle, and Celtic versus Hibs. So, Alan, yeah, there's two potential games there with 4 of the top 5, not including us, playing each other, Glasgow and Hearts and Celtic and Hibs. So something's got to give next weekend.
Definitely something has got to give, and that next week Edinburgh double would be just lovely to go with us winning at Broadwood. So I would certainly take that. But regardless, there's going to be a lot of points dropped, and it's going to be changing all the time at the top. We're in a position where we're at least top if we keep winning our games until City play their game in hand against Hibs. So we'll see how that goes. That's, I think, two weeks on Wednesday. And then all teams will be back on a level footing again in terms of games played. So, listen, all we can do is go and win our games, and then the rest will take care of itself. We have to take advantage and get points on the board and look and see where our teams drop points. But ultimately, it's the same as any other season. If we win all our games, we will win the league.
Absolutely. So, folks, that is us. That'll be us for the women's pod tonight on a Monday night at 6:30. Every Monday, you can join us here to go over the previous game, weekend's game.
Sorry, Brian. Of course, the game on Sundays at Broadwood, it was originally slated to be at Ibrox.
Yes,
against Aberdeen, but they've moved it. As Alan flagged up to me, probably because the men's Hibs games at tea time on Saturday, so probably to give the pitch a bit of a rest. I can only assume that's the reason for it, which I didn't think of till Alan sort of flagged it up to me the other day. But they need to stop chopping and changing. It's either going to be Ibrox or you know what I mean. For me, they've got to tell you where it is, and that's it. You know what I mean. So it is at Broadwood. It's at 2:00. It'll probably be on TV somewhere. I'll be on a website, I would imagine. But if you can get along, tickets are on sale now. What are they? These are about £8 or something like that. It's a good day out. Take the kids along. It's a really good day out. Broadwood's not the most difficult to get to. So Ibrox is a lot easier to get to, right enough. But yeah, so hopefully we get a decent crowd, because there is going to be a lot of Sundays that clash with the men playing they're doing Thursday, Sunday. So, and Sky's not doing us any favours either, because the Limerick and Falkirk games are both at 3:00 and the women are playing at 4. You know what I mean? So it's not doing us any favours to try and get crowds in, but that's the age-old problem. So
yes, it's not a new thing. But join us next week where we react to the Rangers women versus Aberdeen women at Broadwood, as Wolf says, on Sunday at 2:00. If you can get along, please go. You'll always see Alan there, Wolf, Demi, Card, Laura, all the gangs usually there. You'll see them, you'll hear them certainly as well. So, especially if the referees aren't or the linesmen aren't doing their job, you'll certainly hear Wolf and others berating them.
I'm very non-vocal at the women's games, because it's too easy to point me out, because it's not particularly that big a crowd. Unfortunately, as the crowds get bigger, I'll probably get louder, because it's less of look at him again. You know what I mean? And but yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great for families, because there's not so much, it's not as busy as the men's games. It's not as much. There's not as much sweets. It's not as much sweary. It's not as loud if you've got really young kids. You know what I mean? It's just to be honest, it's just a good day out, and the football's usually quite good as well. You know what I mean?
And if you take your young daughters or nieces or whoever they are, they can meet the players and say hello to them, because they actually come over and speak to them, Alan, don't they? Yeah,
they do. Listen, the players can't be expected to do that, but the fact they give up a lot of their time to do that after games, and the club are happy for them to do that, and just ask you don't try and stop them when they're away onto the bus, because they're done by that point, So Going down to the side of the park after a game, the players do spend a lot of time with fans, which is a huge credit to all the players that do that.
Absolutely, it is. And as you say, Alan, it's a great credit to them. They do that. They don't have to, but they choose to. And, I think that it's a nice way to acknowledge the fans and sort of thank them for being at the game and supporting them. So it's great credit the girls do that. And I think all the fans appreciate the time that they spend with the fans. So I think, the fans appreciate the time the players give up to speak to them and sign autographs and stuff. So it's nice. So that'll be us. As I say, 6:30 next week, we will be here to react to the Rangers-Aberdeen game. I've been Brian, and I've been joined by Wilf and Alan. Thank you, Wilf.
No problem, Brian. Enjoy your third shift of the day in 15 minutes' time when you go on the main pod.
Yes, it could be a slightly different tone to that, is what I'll say. That's all I'm going to mention. Alan, thank you.
No, thanks again, Brian. I'll leave it at 2 pods for a day. I'll let you take the crown with the third pod.
I know, I forgot you did a double dunter today as well. So, yeah, absolutely. But no, thank you for joining us, folks. As I say, we'll be back next Monday at 6:30. Thank you for joining us, and we'll speak very, very soon.